Positioning is really about what is your North Star? What is the why? Storytelling, how can we make that positioning really memorable and really sticky? The RP is really more about credibility. The most important thing about how can we get the right message to the right people at the right time? And this right time thing is really, really critical.
Before we dive in, a quick shout out to a tool that recently announced their Series A and that we've been hearing a ton about from the GTM Fund community. It's called Clarify, the autonomous CRM built for founders and early stage teams who want to build more pipeline, close more deals, and spend way less time on busy work. If you've ever spent more time logging calls than actually selling, you'll get why they built it. Clarify automatically enriches your contacts, captures leads from anywhere, even one click from LinkedIn, and keeps your pipeline up to date on its own, so you can focus on winning deals, not updating fields. The team at Sift swapped Salesforce for Clarify and cut their CRM admin by 90%. Imagine what you could do with all that time back. If you're looking to simplify your stack and help your team move faster, check out Clarify at clarify.ai. That's CLARIFY.ai. This episode demystifies the black box of PR for startups, one of the most common areas we hear of startups ask about at GTM Fund. Jenny Hayes, the founder and general partner at Position Ventures, a VC firm that helps early-stage startups craft strategic comms from day one. She has a rich background in PR, including leading comms at Square, and has helped hundreds of startups land press releases in their dream outlets. She breaks down step-by-step how to successfully get placed in top outlets like TechCrunch and Forbes. You'll learn when PR makes sense and when it doesn't, how to build relationships with reporters, how to craft newsworthy narratives, and how to avoid the most common mistakes founders make around press releases. All right, let's get into it. Jenny, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. How fun.
Super happy to have you here. And before we dive into strategy and tactics, I want to clear something up. What is PR really? And why is it such a black box for startups?
Oh, that's a really good question. And I don't know if everyone can answer this correctly, but PR is actually about managing the spread of information between you or your company and the public or your audience. So notice I didn't say we're a publicist or a growth hacker. Like, the goal isn't to get as many eyeballs as possible necessarily. It's about getting the right eyeballs on the right message at the right time.
Great definition. Super helpful. And yeah, really interesting to note it's not actually about publicists. And what should people do PR around? And I know these are simple questions, but they're helpful just to even take a step back. What is it good for? What is it not good for?
PR is really good for someone who's looking to build a brand, build legitimacy, build trust with the customer. I think it's really good for attracting great talent to want to come work here. It's good for business development, partnerships, company morale, changing public perception. These are all things that PR is really good for, because you have this almost third-party validation of all the things that you're saying in your marketing. But in terms of what it's not really good for, I would say it's generally not a replacement for your sales team or anything like that. And at the end of the day, we can bring all the eyeballs onto the product, but the product has to work for you to retain.
And how do you really differentiate between positioning, storytelling, PR, all the things that get tossed around at the same time, and how do they maybe stack up together if they do?
Yeah, a lot of people kind of mush them together, where people might mush positioning, communications, PR, branding, social media, content marketing all together. But I would say that positioning is really about what is your North Star? What is the why? Who is this for? What is this problem, and what problem does it solve? What is your unique and defensible position in the market? Whereas storytelling is more about how can we make that positioning really memorable and really sticky, and almost figure out how can we tell these stories to evoke almost like an emotional or human element to it. What are the narrative arcs? How can we grab people's attention? How can we help people remember you and your company and your positioning? And then finally, I think the PR piece is really more about credibility, because the difference between PR and content marketing is like, you can write your own blog post, which is great. We can talk about how great we are and how great our company is, but this third-party validation of a trusted source kind of talking about you and telling your story for you, that's PR. There's a joke where if you're at a party and someone else is saying, oh, this person is like the best person at this thing, that's kind of PR, someone else trying to tell the story. There are a lot of AI companies. A lot of them are working in very similar spaces. A lot of the messaging might look similar. Their websites might look similar. Your sales materials might look similar. People start thinking about like, how do we stand out? Like, how can we come to this really like unique positioning in a really crowded space? But how can we stand out and have a trusted third party talk about how you guys are the market leader or the best solution for this product? So if you're selling an enterprise, for example, like maybe the enterprise wants to buy the product that they've read about from various news sources versus a company that you Google it and can't really find anything outside of their own content marketing and blog post.
For sure. Yeah, it gives it that authority and credibility to be able to make a conscious, confident decision. Okay, I want to get hypothetical here, Jenny. You advise a ton of startup companies on PR, naturally in your portfolio. Let's say startup just raised a seed or Series A and they want to announce it. TechCrunch, Forbes, whichever outlet they're prioritizing. What's step one? Where do you get started?
Yeah, so step one is always, what are your goals? If folks want to go out there with like a big announcement, we really want to figure out what is the goal of that announcement, because people have really different goals. Sometimes we'll work with the founder and their goal is, we want to hire the very best ML engineers. Or maybe a founder's already has a product with product market fit and their goal is to just get more people talking about their product because they're trying to sell more product. Or maybe like the company is trying to figure out, hey, we're doing great, the product is selling itself, but like we want to position ourselves in a place of like strength and power and get people really excited about the company because we want to go out and do a really big fundraise. So all these things have different goals and there's different communication strategies to help optimize for those goals, right? So if you're trying to hire the very best engineering talent, maybe it's more helpful to dive deeper into what makes your technology really exciting. And there's certain publications that are better for that. Whereas if your product is selling to, I don't know, let's say dentists, maybe TechCrunch or Forbes is not quite where your like customer is spending a lot of time. So there's a lot of different strategies that we can work with the founders on and prioritize depending on what their ultimate goals are. But I also think there's an interesting dichotomy where like a lot of people come to us and are really excited to do the PR, but you have to think about what do we need right now and what's strategic right now. Like once in a while, depending on the product and the company and their goals, the best strategy is actually, we should probably say nothing for a little while until we have all these other things and we can like come out from like a position of strength. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it. I think the most important thing about like, again, what we do with like strategic communications and PR is how can we get the right message to the right people at the right time? And this right time thing is really, really critical, where maybe we could sit on this news for a little while to have it align with this other time that makes more sense and could be a bigger splash.
Gotcha. So one of the most frequent things that we get asked, and overall I'd say our network gets asked, is around wanting to get placed for recruiting purposes and for future investor and fundraising purposes. And it's your usual publications, TechCrunch, Forbes, I'd say those are the two most dominant. And then there's some kind of secondary, more niche ones that are prioritized. But I'm curious your perspective around those two use cases for large publications like TechCrunch or Forbes.
Yeah, I think those are like excellent reasons for people to want to have a communication strategy. I think for fundraising and hiring, they're both use cases where it's really important to have that third-party validation. I think it's one thing to claim that you're the best company to work at. It's quite another where people can read about in their news, do their own homework, look into the actual company, do research. And I think people kind of underestimate how many people want to be able to read about a company, send it to their mom, and feel really confident that this is a legitimate company with good runway that's going to be successful. And I think that's one way to stand out.
So let's say they've raised, let's say, a seed round. They want to announce it, want to come out of stealth, but predominantly to help with the hiring front and help with future fundraising front. They've set their goals. They know those are their goals. What's the next step?
So for hiring and fundraising, a lot of tech and business media in general is really helpful, unless there's in a specific field where it might make sense to go more niche into like specific trade publications that would be helpful for them. But in general, I think the very first step anyone should take before doing any sort of communications or like public relations is really figuring out their own North Star and their positioning. What makes you and your company really unique and defensible? So really understanding yourself, your product, your customer, and the market to figure out where is there a white space for us to come in and really own this message is really helpful. A reporter, and I've already seen like 100 companies doing the same thing, like you have to be so differentiated for us to be really excited to be writing about you. I mean, I can give you an example. So one of our portfolio companies, the company's called New Lantern. They are building an AI radiologist. And when I met this founder and I heard his story, it was really hitting like a bullseye. His mother was actually one of the best radiologists in America, according to all these like industry awards. And then during COVID, he literally was stuck in their basement working like at a desk right next to his mom and watching her do work and watching that workflow and realizing, hey, she's like the #1 radiologist in America. And these are the tools that you're using. This is crazy. You could be using your time in much more productive ways. And he actually like built a brand new platform. And his mom was like the very first customer, and they brought in like all these other radiologists on the platform, and they have like a very, very, I would say like, well, I'm biased, but I think they have a very, very strong leading product now. But the story of why this founder is building this thing was very, very clear.
Yeah, because that's so unique to that particular founder and situation.
A lot of it is really understanding your customer. So first, we need to really figure out how confident are you that this is your ICP customer. Sometimes people already have some sort of product market fit and we can work with the customers they already have. Sometimes they're really early. They have a hypothesis. This is maybe the customer we're trying to reach. We think this is the messaging that resonates with them. But like once you have your ICP customer, and ideally a lot of them, we want to be able to figure out how can we communicate the positioning of your product in the words through the lens of your customer. Right, so your customer probably knows you really well if they're happy customers of exactly what pain points you're solving for them and how can we position your business to explain that to other potential customers that fits within your ICP group.
Got it.
Once you have your North Star and your positioning and you're really confident this is what makes us unique and differentiated, like the next step is figuring out what is the news? What is this news moment that we're excited to share right now? Because there could be a lot of different things going on, but what is this particular story you want to tell? And that could be a fundraising announcement. It could be a new hire. It could be a big customer. It could be a new partnership. But whatever is newsworthy is going to anchor the story and announcement. And there's a couple things that makes things newsworthy. Like the most important thing is it has to be timely. What is happening right now and why do we have to write about the story right now? Because sometimes we might have an announcement that is a nice to have, like maybe you could write it now or in 2 weeks from now and it wouldn't really make a difference. But the more urgency we could put behind the announcement, the better. So the timeliness is really important. Impact is really important, right? So if it's like impacting a lot of people, a lot of customers, if it's impacting an entire space in a certain way because of this product, that's important. The relevance to the audience is also really important. So this comes back to like, first we need to decide what audience we want to talk to based on the goals, but is this really relevant to that audience? And how do we tailor the story to be relevant to this audience so they're really excited about it? And then just thinking about what could make this prominent and newsworthy, right? Whether it's a really big name that we're working with or like a big announcement, a big fundraise, like whatever we can to make this newsworthy is going to help you be more successful in doing your PR.
So the core components of something being newsworthy, primarily it sounds like would be timeliness, impact, and relevance to audience.
Yeah. Yeah, those are all really important.
Super tactical and helpful. I love it.
You've identified that audience that you're trying to reach. And then it's really figuring out, okay, this is the audience, this is the story. How do we reach them? And depending on your audience hangs out or reads different things, right? So they hang out in different places. They might be at certain conferences or listen to certain podcasts or read certain news outlets. So based on that, trying to figure out how can we meet our customer where they are. And from there, just trying to figure out these are the best outlets that would make sense to tell these stories because it's really relevant to their audience. It's impactful. It's timely. All the things line up. And then it's really about going out there, pitching your story. So you have your press release or blog post already. You've done your homework and just pitching the story and sharing the news and why it's relevant to that audience and is really impactful and timely.
Got it. Okay, so figure out where your audience lives. And that sounds like wherever they live is where I want to pitch, right? So if they're really niche industrial, I'll want to pitch a unique industrial outlet.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it depends on your goal. If you're trying to reach that customer. If you're trying to fundraise, then maybe like general tech and business outlets would work for this fundraising goal.
Would a startup have to pitch an exclusive to those outlets?
I think it depends on the story and the reporters you want to work with. There are a lot of reporters who like only want to do exclusives, right? So really knowing your audience, just like probably any other like sales cycle, right? Really knowing your audience, understanding what they want and giving them what they want, making their life really easy. So if you've done your research and they only want exclusive, that makes your life easy. Whereas sometimes there's like very large round that everyone's excited about and they might want to be in several publications.
And then what does that actual outreach process look like?
Kind of the reporters reporting in your space and hopefully have already been able to get to know them and offer value to them before. So a lot of people actually don't think of this ahead of time. So the first time they pitch them, that might be the first time, which not to say it's not possible, but it's always better to have a warm relationship, right?
For
so
sure.
If you've already followed their writing and you're like, hey, I'm really excited and interested in what you're doing, I can add a lot of value in these different places. We have data, we have customers, we have whatever you can do to be a resource, I think is really helpful. So in the ideal world, you could already have built that relationship and have been really helpful. So when you have some news that you think is really relevant to their audience and would be of interest to them, they already have that warm relationship with you. We understand everyone's busy building their company, so not everyone, has done that, but if you can, that is better.
Yeah, always better to have a warm relationship for any kind of outreach. What kind of value could a startup provide to a reporter?
So it depends. Some reporters are on X and social media and things like that, and sometimes they'll like actually ask for certain things. So if they're asking for a certain thing and you're able to help connect them with whatever they're looking for, that always helps. But I think it's really about understanding their audience and understanding what they would be interested in, because we only want to offer value. Like you never want to be in a situation where you're constantly offering not valuable things.
Yeah.
That's probably a good way to burn a relationship, right? So really doing your homework, understanding what people want, and then trying to be helpful. That takes work, right? Like I'll sit down with the founder and be like, tell me everything from the day you were born until now and why you have to be building this particular company.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out what the story is.
I love how it all boils down to story at the end of the day. Okay, so whether it's warm or cold, we're at the outreach stage. Any tips around that outreach? Any kind of tactical nuggets that a startup should know?
It's really about figuring out how can we make this newsworthy? How can I
Yeah.
get someone excited to read it? Just like I want to be excited to click on a headline and read the story, your pitch has to be something that makes me excited to open this email,
Yeah.
right? So this comes back to what is the story? What makes it different and unique? How is it impactful? How is it prominent? How is it timely?
Yeah. Okay. And say someone responds, whether it's an exclusive, not an exclusive, what should a founder expect in that response?
Yeah, I mean, if someone's like interested in learning more about the story, you might hop on a call and they might ask you some questions to learn more. And that's great because they want to learn more and write like a thorough, deep story about you and the company. So, really figuring out what are the stories and talking points and things you want to hit when you have that conversation is also really important.
Yes, very true. That's a good call out because it's super different than the actual outreach itself. The outreach is one, it's more of a condensed, shorter part, and then the interview prep is another area of its own, right? And just because you
Yeah,
get an
like you want to
interview,
be prepared.
yeah,
Sorry.
no, go for it.
To understand like here are all the different anecdotes and stories and maybe you could have like some third party experts kind of like weighing in to like make this like a really rich and compelling story.
No, that definitely makes sense. I've heard a lot of folks advising around offering testimonials, offering external third parties to weigh in on quotes, whether it's customers, investors. So I know that for us, that's always a strategy that we employ.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think the more like meat on the bone we can get to the story, the better. So we want to do all that work up front and be able to offer this all in like a nice, neat package and just be like really prepared and thoughtful about why this is genuinely interesting to that audience.
And just because you get an interview does not mean that they will publish a piece, correct?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's like the story has to be there.
Yeah. And usually you get a feel on the interview itself from the actual interviewer, and they'll start using language that refers to when it's published, and you kind of get a sense, but I have heard that it's not always the case and to be mentally prepared for that too. And so they've had the interview, the startups had the interview. Let's say they nailed it. Hopefully they nail it. What's that next stage look like after the interview itself? And how do you help prepare founders?
Well, hopefully they nailed it and it's a story that the reporter's really excited about. Next is like trying to figure out if there's anything you can do to help follow up, if there's any missing pieces that they might want. And you'll probably talk about during the interview, right? They might be like, "Oh, can we connect with this person or get this data?"
Yeah.
Or see this report. So they might ask for a couple things. So being really timely on that and getting them what they need as fast as possible is good. And then just trying to figure out like what timing works. Ideally, if you're flexible, like you kind of work with the reporter in their timeline, be more flexible about when the story is going to go out. And I think another piece is like trying to figure out how can we amplify the story once it comes out, which is something like people maybe don't think about. Like maybe we've agreed this is the embargo date, the story is going to come out this day. How can we get as many people talking about it as possible? And that could be like you, the founder, reaching out to your network, your investors, the employees, like everyone being like, hey, this is something we're excited about. Would love if you could read it or share it.
Definitely activating that network. I was just chatting with a company yesterday and we're planning a launch for them. And they asked me about influencers and leveraging them for their launch. Do you have any thoughts and opinions around influencers specifically and folks that are less attuned with your product, especially if you're coming out of stealth, but have a great reach to your potential customers or whatever goal that you land on?
Something really important is they have to be very educated about your product because you don't want someone who's not really sure what you're doing talking about your product.
People
see
through it.
Wrong. Right. So we definitely want that to be an authentic relationship if that's what you decide to do. But yeah, we've worked with companies where we'll do an announcement and maybe there's a lot of very relevant technical AI influencers in the space that genuinely love your product and want to kind of talk about it and share it. I think that's great, but it has to come from a genuine place.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I think, part of the issue when you're coming out of stealth is you've got your design partners, you've got your early companies and customers, but a lot of these influencers don't know you. It would be a monetary exchange, a very transactional one.
If you have a truly interesting technology that people are excited about, we've seen very notable influencers just proactively from a pure interest perspective just share it. And that's been very influential because that's probably the most honest and genuine feedback.
What about from a price point perspective? Let's say they don't want to do it themselves, company isn't lucky enough to be working with a partner like yourself that's super specialized in PR, so they might be looking to more of a contractor or agency option.
I've seen it across the board. I've worked with all sorts of consultants, agencies, and folks over the years. I would say it could be anywhere from, depending on what you're looking for and how many hours they want to commit and where you're based, all these things factor into the price, but it could be like anywhere from a couple $1,000s to tens and thousands of dollars a month. To be really clear, right, like you could pay tens of thousands of dollars a month for a retainer, but no one can guarantee coverage, right? Everything like a TechCrunch or whatever is doing, like it's editorial.
What's something that you wish more founders believed about going to press? Maybe they knew or believed about going to press.
I think a lot of it is about storytelling. I think sometimes everyone's so, practical and focused on executing, but sometimes we have to take a step back and really figure out what is the story, what are the human elements to this, and what makes this interesting.
Mm-hmm. And how should founders think about PR as part of their broader go-to-market motion?
Oh, that's a great question. So this is where everyone kind of sometimes will bucket PR and marketing, go-to-market, like all in the same bucket, social media, all in the same bucket. And they don't realize there's actually a different agency for each of those things if you actually wanted to outsource those functions.
Yeah.
So they're so different. And it depends on what you want to double down on in your business. So there's some founders who decide PR is like really important. We're going to double down on that. Some people want to double down on their go-to-market motion. Some people want to do social media. Some people want to do content. Like figuring out what works for your business and is the best bang for your buck, I think is like really important because like as you understand your customer, as you understand what's working to reach them, you should probably invest more time and resources in that particular vertical.
Mm-hmm. So let's say we went through the whole process that you showed us. We're now at the end. It's launched. It was a huge success. Or I guess, how do we define that success?
So I think success should be defined before you start, right? This goes back to our goal setting. Like you don't want to be in a situation where you're like, we did this, but was this successful? You should know these were the goals. And a lot of it is around, this is the story we want to tell to this audience. And this is the messaging, the story, and the sentiment. Right. I think a miss is sometimes people are so focused on the publication that they forget about, hey, what matters is like what story they're telling. So I think if you have like very clear stories, sound bites, sentiments that you want come across in that story and you see those as the end result, then that's success.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. What's one widely held PR belief that you think is bullshit or not really serving us anymore?
Oh. There are some people who probably just don't believe that PR is important or useful anymore, given everything going on with social media and being able to create content and going direct. I think there's some merit to that. I think it's great if you can create content and go direct and all these things, but this like third-party validation of trusted, long-standing outlets and sources and reporters, I think it still matters. But again, I think it depends on how you want to reach your customer and what you want to embrace. I've seen startups very successfully decide they want to do everything on social media and it works for them. But it depends on your customer, who you're selling to, and if you're able to reach your customer there.
Incredible. And Jenny, are there any books that you found particularly helpful throughout your career that you'd recommend to any founder or overall operator or investor listening?
Oh, the number one book everyone should read, I tell all my founders to read it, is Positioning, The Battle for Your Mind. So it's an old book. It's almost 20 years old, but it's like the 101 in all things positioning, and probably your go-to book until I write my positioning book.
Oh, you heard it here first, everyone. And I think we'll be one of the first to support it when you do go live. So let us know if ever you are writing the book.
Oh, absolutely. I'll send you a case.
Please do. Please do. We'll get it on the bookshelf. And overall, where can people find you, Jenny?
So we're at positionventures.com, so you can learn more about us and the firm and what we're investing in these days. And if we can be helpful, feel free to reach out.
Thank you. Thank you. That's great. We'll drop it in the show notes. And I know we did a little bit of a recap at the beginning, but would you mind just sharing for everyone a quick kind of note on Position Ventures? What are you focused on? What's helpful? What kind of founders should be keeping an eye on Position, and how are you helping?
Yeah, so Position Ventures is an early stage venture fund. We invest at pre-seed seed, and our goal is to be really helpful, collaborative partners. So we write small checks from $100,000 to $500,000, and our goal is to really be almost like a super angel on your cap table to help with all things positioning and communications.
Well, it's something that we see all the time on our side at GPTM Fund is the importance of positioning, the importance of PR. So I can imagine that that is incredibly valuable strategic capital on the cap table. Love what you're working on, and thank you for sharing it here with the audience.
No, thank you, Sophie. This was fun.
You bet. Thank you to all our listeners, and we will catch you next week.